When I was a boy, my grandfather planted a small garden behind his house. He called it the waiting field. It wasn't much to look at, just a patch of rough soil, dry, plain, quiet. No flowers, no fruit, just earth and the sound of wind moving through empty space. One spring morning I remember standing beside him. The sun was barely up, and the air smelled like rain that hadn't yet fallen. He knelt down, pressed a handful of tiny seeds into the dirt with those old calloused hands, and said softly, "Now we wait." A week passed, then 2, then 4. Still nothing. I remember tugging on his sleeve and whispering, "Grandpa, maybe they're not going to grow." He looked at me with that gentle smile, the kind that only comes from years of watching time do its work, and said, "Patience, boy. The roots come before the blooms." Back then, I didn't understand. To me, progress meant proof, something you could see. If there were no signs above the ground, I thought nothing was happening below it. But that little garden, that waiting field, taught me a lesson I've spent my whole life relearning. The most important growth is invisible at first. You see, we live in a world that celebrates fast results, instant messages, same-day delivery, overnight success. We measure days instead of seasons. And yet, every meaningful thing in life, every business, every craft, every friendship, every bit of character grows on its own timetable. There are no shortcuts to spring. I remember once coaching a young man named David. He had that spark, passion in his eyes, ideas racing through his mind, energy pouring out of every word. He wanted to start his own business, and I could feel how much he believed in it. But after 3 months, when the results still hadn't shown up, he came to me, shoulders low, eyes tired. He said, "Maybe I'm not cut out for this." So I asked him, "David, what did you expect to see by now?" He said, "Progress, customers, proof that it's working." And I smiled, because I had seen that look before. So I told him about the waiting field. I said, "You can't judge the harvest by what happens in the first few weeks after planting. The roots are forming underground, and that's the work that matters most." He didn't look convinced, not at first, but it kept going, and a year later, his business turned a corner. When we met again, his face was different, peaceful, confident. He said, "You were right, Dale. The roots were growing while I was doubting." That line stayed with me, because that's the part we so often forget. Patience isn't passive. It's not sitting still, hoping something good will happen. Patience is the most disciplined kind of action. It's faith in motion. When I think about those long cycles, the ones that stretch for months or even years, I think about how uncomfortable it can feel to give without seeing anything in return. You pour your time, your energy, your heart into something, and all you get back is silence. But silence, my friend, is not absence. It's gestation. It's the soil doing its quiet, invisible work. There was a woman I once knew who started painting after she retired. Every week, she'd come to class, sit by the window, and lay out her brushes with quiet care. Her hands trembled a little, but her eyes still carried that young, searching fire. Week after week, she painted. Soft, clumsy strokes at first, colors that didn't quite blend, but she kept showing up. After 6 months, she sighed one day and said, "I thought I'd be better by now." I smiled and told her, You're not failing, you're fermenting." She laughed, but I meant every word. Because growth, real, lasting growth, follows what I call the law of invisible accumulation. Tiny efforts stack up quietly, day after day, until one day they burst into view and the world says, "Where did that come from?" But you know, it came from the waiting field. You see, there's a kind of faith that patience requires. Not blind faith, not wishful thinking, but grounded faith. The kind that says, "I may not see results yet, but I trust the process." That's what separates the people who thrive in the long run from those who burn out early. Impatience confuses effort with failure. Patience allows effort to become strength. I used to think I was a man of action. But the older I get, the more I realize I'm a man who's learned to respect rhythm. There's a time to plant, a time to water, and a time to wait. Waiting isn't wasted time, it's building time. Because the work you do while nothing seems to happen, that's the work that prepares you for everything that does. Let me tell you about a man named Joseph, a quiet craftsman who built violins by hand. I once asked him how long it took to make just one. He smiled and said, "About a year, sometimes more." A year for a single instrument? 12 months of carving, sanding, shaping, tuning, all for something he might not even hear finished until the next winter. So I asked him, "Joseph, how do you stay patient when the result is so far away?" He said something I'll never forget. He looked down at the wood in his hands and said, "Because I fall in love with the wood." That hit me. He didn't chase the finish line, he found meaning in the process. And when that violin was finally complete, it didn't just sound beautiful, it sang. Every note carried the memory of patient hands, of quiet mornings, of faith that never rushed. I think about that often, especially now, when the world seems to race toward everything. We confuse urgency with importance. We sprint toward outcomes but forget endurance. We chase applause but neglect devotion. And yet all the truly great things, the things that last, are built by people who keep watering empty soil. Because patience, my friend, isn't waiting for the reward. It's trusting that the invisible work will one day be seen. It's believing that roots matter, even when no one claps for them. And in that belief, you grow twice. Once in what you're building, and once in who you're becoming. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You're sitting there, listening, and the quiet voice in the back of your mind says, "Dale, what if it never pays off? What if I keep waiting, keep working, and nothing ever blooms?" I've heard that question more times than I can count, and believe me, I've asked it myself. That's where one of my favorite little mental exercises comes in. I call it the worst-case clarity. I learned it back in my teaching days. Simple, but powerful. Here's how it works. When worry starts whispering, when fear tells you you're wasting time, stop. Take out a piece of paper, write down the worst possible outcome. Yes, the very thing you're afraid of. Face it head on. Then ask yourself, what if that really happened? Could I survive it? What could I do to make it even a little better? 9 times out of 10, you'll discover something incredible. Even the worst isn't fatal, it's just uncomfortable. And once you make peace with the worst, you free yourself to work toward the best.
That's how you stay steady through the long, uncertain seasons. You stop fighting what might happen and start focusing on what you can do today. You move from anxiety to discipline. And discipline, my friend, is just patience in motion.
A friend of mine, Rachel, runs a small vineyard out in the countryside. Every winter, people drive by and ask her, "Are the vines dead?" And every time, she smiles and says, "No, they're just storing energy." That line, storing energy, I think about it often, because that's what patience really is. It doesn't waste the off-season. It gathers strength for the next bloom. You and I, we all have winters. Quiet stretches when nothing seems to move, when the world feels still, when progress hides underground. But those quiet months, they're the ones that make spring possible. You see, nature never hurries, and yet everything still grows. Right now, somewhere in your life, something is taking root, even if you can't see it yet. Maybe it's a skill you're learning. Maybe it's a relationship you're rebuilding. Maybe it's a dream you planted long ago and you're wondering if it will ever sprout. Don't dig it up too soon just to check if it's growing. Keep tending the soil. Keep showing up. Because the roots, they're doing their work. And one day, when you least expect it, you'll wake up to see green. When people talk about patience, they often imagine waiting passively, sitting on their hands, hoping the world will reward them someday. But real patience, the kind that builds results, is anything but passive. It's deliberate. It's disciplined. It's an agreement you make with yourself to keep showing up, even when no one claps and no one notices. So how do you do that? How do you stay steady through those long seasons of invisible work when the world seems to move faster than you do and doubt creeps in like frost? Let me share 3 small practices that have carried me and many people I've taught through those quiet seasons. They're not glamorous, but they work because they're grounded in rhythm, not emotion. The first is something I call the 90-day contract. Now don't worry, it's not a legal document. It's something you sign with yourself. It says, for the next 90 days, I'll tend to this one thing without demanding quick rewards. It's a way to outsmart that impatient part of your mind, to give it a time frame, long enough for roots to take hold, but short enough to feel real. Here's how it works. You pick one goal, not 10, just one. It might be writing a chapter, building a habit, improving a skill, growing a small business. Then you set a simple rule: 90 days of consistent action, no judgment until the end. During those 90 days, you don't chase proof, you chase presence. You show up, you water the soil. And when doubt whispers it's not working, you remind yourself the deal's not up yet. The second practice is something I call the root check. When I was younger, I measured my progress by applause. If people noticed my work, I felt successful. If no one did, I thought I'd failed. But life has a way of teaching you humility. Over time, I learned that outcomes, the visible things, they're unreliable measures of growth. Because sometimes you're doing everything right, and it still looks like nothing's happening. So instead of asking, what did I achieve? I started asking, what did I strengthen? That's what a root check is. It's a moment to stop judging the flowers and start honoring the roots. Instead of counting sales, you count conversations. Instead of counting applause,
You count hours of honest practice. Instead of chasing fruit, you measure water and sunlight. I remember a young musician I once coached. She was talented, hardworking, but discouraged because her audience hadn't grown in months. She was ready to quit. So we did a route check. She listed everything she'd been doing, practicing daily, refining her tone, recording new songs even when no one was listening. Her roots were strong. She just couldn't see them yet. 3 months later, a local radio station discovered her music. Her growth had been underground all along. And that's the magic of the route check. It reminds you that progress doesn't always look like progress. Sometimes it looks like quiet consistency. So once a week, take a few minutes and write down 3 things, not outcomes, but efforts. Maybe it's hours practiced, people helped, ideas drafted. Those are your roots. That's where your strength hides. And when you start tracking those roots, you realize something powerful. You've been growing all along.
Now, there's one more practice I want to share with you, and it might surprise you, because patience, while deeply personal, also grows stronger in connection. I call this one the small public report. It doesn't mean shouting your goals to the whole world. It means choosing 1 or 2 trusted people and giving them honest updates about your progress each week. The key word is small. The goal isn't validation, it's visibility. Not for others to see your results, but for you to see your own commitment reflected back. Let me tell you a story. A man I once mentored was writing a book. He had talent, discipline, but every time the work got quiet, he'd lose motivation. So I suggested the small public report. Each Sunday, he sent a short email to a close friend, just a few lines. Still writing. 2 pages today. Not my best, but I showed up. That was it. No applause, no performance, just truth. 6 months later, he had a complete manuscript. He told me knowing I'd tell someone kept me from giving up when it got quiet. And that's the beauty of it. Patience grows stronger when it's shared in small, honest ways. When you tell someone, "I'm still tending the soil," you remind yourself that slow progress is still progress. So choose your person, a friend, a mentor, a colleague. Tell them what you're working on. And once a week, report just one thing you did, 1 drop of water, 1 ray of sunlight you added to your roots. No apologies for imperfection, no pressure for praise, just honesty and continuity. Because even accountability, when done gently, is another form of sunlight. These 3 practices, the 90-day contract, the route check, and the small public report, they form a rhythm. They give structure to patience. They keep you grounded while the roots are still growing underground. But there's one more truth I want you to remember. Something that ties it all together. When life feels slow, it's easy to forget how growth really happens. You plant effort every day, but the rewards come in bursts, sometimes long after you've stopped expecting them. It's not that your work suddenly became good overnight, it's that time finally caught up to your consistency. I call that the harvest lag, and once you understand it, you stop forcing outcomes and start trusting the cycles, because all growth, every kind, moves in seasons. Unseen effort, invisible buildup, sudden bloom. A young engineer once told me, "I've been coding for years and I'm still not where I want to be." So I asked him, "Have you ever watched bamboo grow?" He looked puzzled. "No, why?" I said, "For the first 4 years, nothing happens above the ground. You water it, you feed it, you wait. And then in the 5th year, it shoots up,
60 feet, almost overnight. He smiled and said, "So you're saying I'm in year 4? I said, "Exactly. Don't stop watering now." And that's the secret. What looks like delay is often compounding strength. The quiet days aren't wasted. They're invested. Every steady repetition, every patient act, every moment you choose to stay when it would be easier to quit, that's another layer of root.
I once asked my grandfather why he never seemed frustrated when his garden took so long to bloom. He smiled, brushed the dirt from his hands, and said, "Because I trust the soil. It's never failed me yet." Then he looked up, eyes soft, and said something I'll never forget. "The flowers are just the evidence. The roots are the faith." And that, my friend, is the heart of patience, faith in unseen progress. When the world demands proof, patience whispers, "Keep tending." When doubt asks for speed, patience replies, "Strength first, then sight." And when success finally comes, patience doesn't gloat, it just smiles, because it already knew. So wherever you are right now, in the middle of a quiet project, a slow dream, or a long recovery, remember this: not everything that counts can be counted yet, but everything that matters is accumulating quietly beneath the surface. That's the power of invisible growth. Now, picture the garden once more. The soil still, the air cool, the field empty. Nothing looks alive. But beneath it all, life hums softly, preparing, stretching, building. And one morning, without warning, you'll see green. Not because something magical happened overnight, but because patience was working its quiet miracle all along. So keep planting, keep watering, keep waiting with purpose. Because the roots are forming even now, and the bloom, it will come in its own perfect time. Tomorrow may not bring flowers, but the soil will still be alive. And that, my friend, is reason enough to keep tending. Because everything beautiful begins invisible and stays faithful long before it's seen.